Okay.
This is Carl.
We are live.
Perfect. Thank you. Good morning. Today is November 21st, 2024. This is the matter of the application Z001624C, an application that I'm referring to as Fort Kennedy, seeking a conditional use permit approval to operate a nonprofit organization provide services to veterans. The issue is the request is being reviewed as whether this is a similar use to a government use, noting that government uses require a conditional use permit in the general industrial zoning district, and that's the location of the property that Fort Kennedy is seeking to operate from. My name is Carl Cox. I'm a private attorney appointed by Clackamas County as land use hearings officer with authority to conduct this hearing and make a determination in this matter. This is a quasi-judicial land use hearing, which means two important things for those participating in this hearing. First, all of the criteria that can be used in reaching a decision have been identified in the staff report. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the criteria identified in the staff report or other relevant criteria found in the comprehensive plan or other land use regulation that the person believes applies to the decision. Accordingly, please direct your testimony to a relevant approval criterion. Second, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Once final, this decision may be appealed to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals. I will state for the record, I've not received any ex parte contact, meaning no one contacted me outside of these proceedings to try to persuade me concerning a fact or issue present in this matter. I've also considered issues of bias and conflict and have determined that I do not have any bias or conflict of interest in this matter. The county is making a record of the hearing, and at this time, I'm going to ask that the county provide an explanation concerning participation in this hearing via the Zoom platform. Please proceed.
Okay. The public hearing will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Excuse me. Panelists for today's hearing, which include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, have both audio and video capability. Audience members who have joined the meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by the county staff moderator. Audience members' video will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being conducted as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording on the county website later today. There is a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raise hand feature. For attendees on PC and iPad, you have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar, either top or bottom depending on your device. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a while. Primarily, you will see participants' cameras, not just the one who is speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin. Once you have provided your testimony, your mic will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of this hearing and you wish to submit additional written testimony, email written testimony to bblessing@clackamas.us or mail it to Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division, 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City, Oregon. The staff contact email address is also available on the webpage where you found the Zoom link for today's hearing. Testimony must be received by 4 p.m. on the day the record closes. People who testified and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer's written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive a decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address either by mail to the staff contact for the application or by entering it in the Zoom chat function during the hearing. And then, am I going straight into my presentation, Mr. Cox?
I just wanted to make a brief statement. I just would like to apologize to the participants that I'm only able to appear by telephone. caught in the cyclone that hit Seattle and have no power, but I have a phone and a external battery for it. And I promise I will do my best with this. And as was pointed out by Ms. Renhard earlier, the recording will be available, and I'll be able to see all of you when I review that recording, and I will be able to see all of the exhibits that are shared at that time. I did prepare in advance for this hearing, and I've read all of the materials, exhibits, including the updates from Mr. Stevenson with the additional submitted materials and the revised staff recommendations. So I did prepare in advance for this hearing, but I apologize that I'm only able to appear by telephone. Please proceed, Mr. Blessing.
Okay, thanks. Just share my screen here. We just get into presentation mode. It's the new version. Why can't I find presentation mode? Oh, there we go. Okay. My name is Ben Blessing, Senior Planner for Clackamas County Planning and Zoning. As Mr. Cox mentioned, this is a hearing for Z0016-24, a conditional use. It's important to note that the original staff planner on this project was Melissa Lord, Senior Planner. Also, the additional submittal items added to the record some weeks ago was administered by the planning manager, Lindsay Nesbitt. So I want to make one housekeeping correction. If you can, I provided my email address to send additional testimony if we end up having to do that. But Lindsay Nesbitt is also a staff contact, so you can include myself or Lindsay, and her email is lnesbitt@clackamas.us, and this slideshow will also be made part of the record too.
All right.
Okay, so the proposal, the applicant obtained a similar use determination under file Z0549-22, where the planning director determined that a nonprofit veteran service organization is similar to government uses, which are listed as a conditional use in the general industrial zone. The applicant is this application is the second part of the similar use determination process. Government uses are listed as a conditional use. Therefore, the applicant seeks a conditional use permit to operate a nonprofit organization that provides services to veterans. There are no changes or development proposed to the building or property as shown on the following slide. Just a real quick location summary here. You got the aerial photo on the left. Couple of important notes is that there's no actual expansion of the footprint happening. It's just this sector of the existing building you can see with the red arrow. And then the floor plan is it's interior work. There's just the support rooms, offices, and so forth that will be that needed to facilitate the services for the veterans. Okay, so some specifics of the proposal: offices for staff and volunteer, housing services, legal services, energy assistance, employment assistance, energy financial assistance, referrals for drug and alcohol counseling, assistance obtaining IDs, transportation assistance, clothing distribution, food distribution, and health and hygiene services. In September, staff recommended denial of the conditional use upon these findings: insufficient parking, lack of detail for solid waste and recycling facilities, lack of detail demonstrating government uses that provide services for clothing distribution, food distribution, health and hygiene services. The revised staff recommendation: the applicant requested to cancel the September 19th hearing and submitted additional documentation on November 8th, 2024, demonstrating examples of government agencies that provide clothing and food distribution services, as well as health and hygiene services. Documentation and a revised site plan demonstrating compliance with the off-street parking and solid waste recycling standards. And staff therefore revise the recommendations for approval subject to conditions. So that just some couple of slides here talking about some highlights of the approval criteria for a conditional use. So ZDO section 1203.03 general approval criteria. The characteristics of the subject property are suitable for the proposed use considering size, shape, location, topography, existence of improvements, and natural features. The site is 8 acres, using an existing building on a developed lot, additional development not proposed. There's access from major arterial road, that's Johnson Creek Boulevard, no mapped environmental hazards. Thus, staff finds that the criteria is met. So, more general approval criteria. The proposed use complies with any applicable requirements of the zoning district and overlay zoning districts in which the subject property is located, as well as section 1000 of the development standards. So, as demonstrated in the staff recommendation, staff found the proposal to be in compliance with the applicable sections of ZDO 1000. And with that, staff has recommended approval with conditions. And just one other quick note, I'm filling in and facilitating the hearing for staff because the planning manager, Lindsay Nesbitt, is out. So obviously I will do my best to answer questions, but I may need to defer some technical questions to the applicant. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to provide the applicant an opportunity to discuss the proposal and present information that the applicant wants me to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. This is Garrett Stevenson, legal counsel for the applicant. As I mentioned earlier, my associate, Ben Taylor, is online today, and he's going to be taking care of the applicant's presentation. I will note briefly, just for the record, that we concur with the staff report with the exception of one minor adjustment that Ben's going to explain concerning proposed condition 2. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Ben, and he will take care of our presentation.
Thank you, Garrett. Good morning. I'm Ben Taylor, associate at Schwabe, here today on behalf of the applicant, Fort Kennedy. We really don't have too much to add. I think Ben Blessing touched on most of it in this presentation. First of all, I want to thank county staff, Melissa Lord, Lindsay Nesbitt, Ben Blessing, for working with us and getting this to a recommendation of approval. Secondly, as mentioned, Fort Kennedy has been at this site for a number of years. Due to low overhead for them at this site, it's of critical importance that they stay on the site. If they were to move, that would present some difficulties for them. Really, so, I think as Ben Blessing explained, there was a recommendation of denial, but since then, especially after our October 28th filing, we, entered more information into the record that has provided enough facts for the staff to recommend approval. As Garrett mentioned, we've had a chance to review the entirety of the staff report, and we are in agreement, minus just the one proposed condition number 2. So really with that condition, it talks about, and this might be a boilerplate condition that shows up just in most approvals, but it talks about the approval being valid for 4 years from the date of final written decision. And basically, and I'm paraphrasing, Fort Kennedy would have to pull any and all permits within that 4-year period. But here, as it's noted in the staff report, there's no changes or development proposed to the building or property. So we just want to avoid a kind of awkward situation of where in 4 years' time, if Fort Kennedy doesn't have to pull any permits, someone could look back on this and say, well, wait a minute, the decision's void because they haven't pulled anything. So our recommendation or suggestion would be to either remove or not include that condition in a decision, or just modify it just to account for a situation where Fort Kennedy wouldn't need to pull any permits. But I think other than that, that's all that I have. Obviously, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, I'd like to just have a brief conversation, including you, Mr. Taylor, and also Mr. Blessing. So as I understand it, it is I've seen the same condition numerous times, that permits need to be completed within 4 years of the approval date to keep the conditional use permit from expiring, essentially. Mr. Blessing, is that your view of it as well, that this is added for the circumstance where there is a permit required?
So, I mean, the implementation language is the key there. And if there is no permits, and this may need to be verified, but if there are no permits required whatsoever for the use, or if there's permits even that have been pulled but not finals, then that would suffice to cover that condition, basically. I haven't looked at the building permit history, but yeah, obviously that boilerplate condition is referencing any future development permits or building permits. So again, I would say if there's no building permits whatsoever, I see there is a condition for lighting potentially. There could be electric permits and so forth. Then I believe that it would just be the existing permits that could suffice with that recommendation. I'd probably want to check that though, just to be on the safe side. But otherwise, then if you look at the implementation requirements in 1203.05A1, it says implemented means all major development permits shall be obtained and maintained. And then it goes on to say a major development permit is a building permit for a new primary structure that was part of the conditional approval, or a permit issued by the county for parking or road improvements. So, I mean, I can confirm that, but if there is no new permits needed, then it would be considered implement, probably by virtue of the building permits being finalized, would be my assumption, which I do want to say again, second time, just probably want to confirm that, but I believe that's the case.
I didn't want to put you on the spot, and I understand that you're coming in at the 11th hour here. I did see that the recommendation included lighting at the illumination lighting at the entrance to the facility. But I don't think that that's a major development permit that would trigger this. So perhaps some modified language, a phrase in there that if any are required by the county, something like that.
Right.
So,
Mr. Cox, this is Garrett Stevenson. I think that makes sense, and that's just what I was going to recommend. Basically, we want to make sure that if we're all sort of moved on from this land use business in the future, and this decision is still on the books, we want to make sure that staff can read it and understand that, I think at the most, any permit that would be issued here would be like a trade permit, which wouldn't even reference the conditional use necessarily, because it would be an over-the-counter permit. So I think adding a note or an acknowledgement that the building already exists, that the application does not include any proposal for new development, and that if no major permit is necessary, which we assume it's not, then the use is vested essentially under this approval.
Okay, I'll work on that. Or actually, could I ask that you just propose some language and provide a copy to Mr. Blessing, and I'll look at that
Sure.
by 4 o'clock today?
Yeah, that's not a problem. And if it, Ben, if it simplifies things for you, we can leave the current boilerplate language in there and then just maybe add a note to that.
You mean like a sub condition?
Well, I think really more than anything, what we're talking about is how do we interpret this condition in the future. And so I'll try and make this conform to your guys' standard operating procedures as much as I can.
Okay.
Or I can do it as well. I understand the issue. So if no major permits are required by the county within the 4-year period, then it doesn't make sense that you would be concerned that your permit is going to become invalid because of something you didn't do that you weren't asked to do.
Exactly.
I can do something with that. Are you comfortable with me handling that? Mr. Taylor, Mr. Singh, Mr. Stevenson? Or
Mr.
do you want to
Cox,
propose
this is
something?
Garrett.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you, just to confirm, you wanted to handle, I mean, I'm totally comfortable with you handling that, but if you want us to take a crack at it, we're happy to do so, whatever you prefer.
Let's talk about that when we talk about keeping the record open, because I don't want to do something here that requires the record to stay open if no one wants it to stay open.
Sounds good.
All right. Mr. Taylor, did you complete your presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have members of the public that would like to participate and make a comment or provide testimony for me to consider in this matter?
I do not have any hands raised.
All right, then let's talk about the record. So, does any party or member of the audience want an opportunity to provide additional evidence, arguments, or testimony? Does the applicant wish to waive the period for final written argument? Let's talk about this. Does the applicant have any requests to keep the record open past 4 p.m. today?
Hi, Ben Taylor speaking. No, we don't, and we're happy to waive the final legal argument period.
Okay, and the county, same? No request to keep the record open?
No request. Yep.
Okay, so the record will close by 4 p.m. today. Let's talk about that statement. So, Mr. Stevenson, did you want to submit something to Mr. Blessing or the counties to read so they have a chance to see it and comment sometime this afternoon so that I can have this closed up by 4 p.m. today?
Yeah, we're happy to do that, particularly Mr. Cox, because you're stuck without power or internet. So we'll take a first crack at it. So maybe it makes things a little easier. At least we'll give you something to react to.
Thank you, sir. And provide that to Mr. Blessing in time for the county to make a comment if they so choose. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, that won't be a problem. Thanks.
So, all right, and then the record will close at 4 p.m. today. I'll look for an email from the county forwarding your comment, your proposed language to amend condition of approval number 2. I think it makes sense, and I want to see something like that happen. I anticipate approving this application. I will do that after reviewing the video record of this hearing so I can see all the exhibits, and I will also have a chance to review, I believe it'll be Exhibit 12, the county's presentation, and I will issue a written order consistent with what I just stated. All right? With that, I will close this hearing, and thank you all for your patience with my appearance by only telephone. I apologize again for that, but I promise I will do my best with this application.
Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.